In the aftermath of yesterday's horrific shooting, I wanted to shed a little light on the Charlie Kirk that I knew. Charlie and I connected in 2014. At the time, I was working for Ben Shapiro and the predecessor, in many regard, to the Daily Wire, called Truth Revolt. It was based out of the David Horowitz Freedom Center in California, and there was a retreat for young conservative college students. We heard from the likes of Adam Carolla, James O'Keefe made an appearance, some other people. And Charlie was there along with probably a dozen, maybe 2 dozen people in total. We hit it off immediately and became very good friends, speaking, if not daily, but then weekly for almost 2.5 years. This is pre-Trump, before Charlie really was elevated to a whole nother level. And he was already clearly headed, destined for greatness. He had an unbelievable energy, something that you can't fake, a passion you simply cannot fake. He had a nonstop motor, extremely disciplined, always looking to raise money for the cause because he really believed in the cause. Extremely confused by the Jewish left in America. He couldn't understand how, when he would go to certain campuses and try to start organizing, that he'd have opposition from left-leaning groups like J Street and others. Just for context, this is someone I used to meet for lunch and dinner at Mr. Broadway in Manhattan or at La Marais if his flight came in very late. He'd only go to a place as long as it had good pickles. And to know that a decade later, the president of the United States is announcing that he succumbed to his wound and was assassinated it's hard to even put that into words. I don't really know how to put that into words. This is someone who worked for everything he ever got. He gave his all to this country, to the United States, knew that the United States at its core was a beautiful and just country, and was deeply disturbed by the fact that hard left actors had abused the systems to push forward bad policy. So his response to community organizers getting behind Barack Obama was that he'd become the best community organizer. He was a gentle soul. He really cared about the issues. He saw them as existential. He saw them as really being the future of the country. I told the story earlier on Instagram, but the first time he was invited to speak at a conference, a Jewish conference, dealing with the problem of the BDS movement, it was the first time that Charlie had ever addressed a Jewish audience. His go-to speech that time was how Obama's evil and Hillary's evil and we need to stop the Democrats, but that wouldn't be an appropriate speech for this audience. So he called me before we got to Vegas and said, we really need to sit down and hammer out this PowerPoint. We sit down, I give him a few bipartisan things he could say, and he gives this unbelievable speech. I'm not even going to say that I had anything to do with it. Charlie was just this tremendous orator, and he had this unbelievable ability to control the room. Even the best coaches, I don't think, could teach you how to do that. And I'll never forget, he had a few lines that were unbelievable. Unfortunately, I've forgotten the lines, but I can remember the audience laughing and engaging. And the first person that came up and ran up to Charlie saying he wanted to help him was Chaim Saban, who's one of the biggest left-leaning Democrat donors in the country. And Charlie comes back to our table and says, someone told me it has something to do with Power Rangers, but is this a big player? Should I be paying attention? And when I informed him who he was, it was quite a laugh for both of us. But he had this unbelievable ability to capture everyone's attention and push the message in an authentic way. He was soulful. He really cared. I'm really sad that I didn't get to see him up close and personal as a father, to see that the clear love and admiration, the mutual love and admiration that he and Erica shared is unbelievable. And I'm sorry I didn't get to see that up close. But we stayed in touch over the years, but he had much bigger things to do. If you look at all the tributes that were pouring out in the last 24 hours, J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, President of the United States, almost every single conservative senator, Barack Obama paid tribute, George Bush paid tribute. This is someone who achieved so much and really cared about bettering the world. Now, you might not agree with everything he said. I can't even tell you everything he said in the last 15 years or so. That's not even the point. He was killed, but to me, and actually, the one additional point is I remember at some of our dinners, we'd always be strategizing about how to best get the pitches to the Fox producers. Of course, the biggest shows at that time were Bill O'Reilly, Megyn Kelly, Sean Hannity, and we're sitting there strategizing, saying, how can we get our articles and our news stories in front of their producers so we can maybe get a crack at their show? And then to see Megyn Kelly crying on her show yesterday out of the tremendous loss for Charlie's family and the country as a whole, and to Megyn personally, is unbelievable. You see how someone's set out to try to make the country a better place. He identified the markets that he could do that, and he really succeeded. This is someone who succeeded in almost every way. And to me, Charlie will always be that kid that ran 3 miles every day, hammered out a bunch of emails, wanted to make sure that the kosher deli had good pickles, and was always looking to meet a new donor so that he could push the conservative cause further in America. And I was looking yesterday when Ezra Schwartz, Hashem Yikam Damo, was murdered in 2015. Charlie was truly broken, and he sent me a number of messages about how sad he was about it. He really, truly cared. It wasn't fake. You couldn't fake that kind of emotion. You couldn't fake that level of intensity when he was truly upset. And to me, he'll always be that happy-go-lucky Boy Scout from Chicago. That everything else, he was amazing in the last decade or so. What he did for President Trump and what he did for this country will be in many biographies and history books. But at his core, he was a Boy Scout trying to make America a little bit better. And I'm grateful to have known him and to have been able to see him at his start. Charlie was a good man. He was a patriot, and he should rest in peace.